What do you teach it?
So,
Huh?
What do you teach it?
Well, she's about to tell you. Yeah. So, okay, Sheila, you want to start us off?
Okay.
Because Christina's out there doing the other. Okay.
okay, are you okay, Matt?
Well, I'll start us off.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then let me.
Yeah, and then she's talking about as far as the speakers go.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, I usually do a kind of a quick thing at the beginning to kick us off.
Sure.
Welcome, everyone. Good to see you tonight. And we're hoping to fill the place up, so maybe people are still caught in traffic and still on their way. But we always have a good time together no matter what. When we started the group, George and I were certainly in agreement, and still to this day, that there needed to be a Parkinson support group that was faith-based. But one of the questions is, what does faith mean? In other words, what does it mean to you? There are probably some people that think in terms of the faith. In other words, their church, and what their church believes or teaches or practices. And those can be three entirely separate things, of course, at times, but it's not supposed to be that way. Our practice is supposed to be what we teach and what we believe, but, you know. So when we talk about personal faith, what does that mean, or what does the word faith mean to you? Any thoughts about what it might mean to have faith, or what faith means? And yes, this is the audience participation part of the program.
I would say faith is trusting God as who God says God is.
Kathy, you selected my favorite word when it comes to faith, and that is trust. Yep. In many ways, faith is related to belief. This won't be on the test later, but the root word for faith and belief is the same in Greek. But faith involves trust, and it involves acting on what you believe. And there are a lot of people who are church members, and maybe they're very good church members, whatever that means to them or their church. But if we don't put our faith into practice, what good is it? And we could go to the book of James, and James says, you know, you want to talk about your faith? That's my paraphrase of that. But I'm going to show you my faith by what I do, because faith without works is dead. And some people make a big deal like there's a difference between Paul and James. I don't think there is. I think they're looking at it from an entirely different angle, more than that there's a difference or a disagreement. So when I think of faith, one of the verses that I go to is Hebrews 11:1, the start of a long chapter about people who had faith and acted on their faith. And the first verse is kind of a definition or a description of faith. Now, faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. You may notice that faith, especially when it's described in terms of hope and assurance of what we do not see, that faith is not about being absolute, having absolute certainty. There's no mathematical formula that A plus B plus C equals faith. For each one of us, there's a different reason why we believe what we believe and how God fits into our lives or doesn't, because of an understanding of faith, or some of us might talk about a lack of understanding of faith. But this idea that we need to take kind of a step beyond our certainty many times. Now, one of my favorite sayings is that all that I have seen causes me to trust God for what I have not seen. Because there's a lot that I don't know. Some of you have known me long enough to know that I'm not all that smart sometimes. But I watch, I listen, I learn. And what I've seen throughout my life is that when I put my trust in God, when I look to Him for help, that my life is better. And I cannot imagine a world that could exist or that is in existence without God. Now that's me. You have to decide how you feel, what your understanding is, whether God fits into your life at this point or not. I hope it does. I hope He does. But I trust that you're going to work out things the way you need to, and I have the confidence that we need to look to God and hopefully find what we're looking for. Thank you, God, for this meeting and the gathering. Thank you, Father, for helping us this day. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Michelle, if you want to.
Okay. So, we've got two wonderful speakers tonight. One is actually out in the parking lot taking care of something else right now. So, Sheila is going to be doing a Medicare changes for us here tomorrow, and was wonderful enough to come tonight too. So, but tonight's going to be a little bit different, talking about the benefits of low impact, especially water aerobics, because she teaches that.
Thank you. Thank you. It's nice to meet y'all. It's the first time I've ever been in this area, in this facility. It really is a nice facility for you guys to be having your meetings. So thank you for that, and the nice little setup back there. And just to give kudos here to God, okay? We're going to give kudos to God. Always going to give kudos to God.
Amen.
Is I'm a Christian, love it. Jesus is number one. He's right here, and guides me hopefully every day in what I do and say. And just a little testimony is that as a water instructor, I have the opportunity to meet so many people, and I just enjoy it. You know, I just enjoy meeting people. And over the last few years, this is adding to the God thing. And sort of my perspective on life is, a lot of times, you know, Paul was talking, remember when Paul was saying, I've got this, he called it an affliction or something that it hindered him. Okay, we don't really know what that was. It doesn't really matter. The point is that over the last, since 2010, I've had cancer. Not one time, not twice, not even 3 times. I've had cancer 4 times. Now, it's kind of crazy because none of it is connected. You know, one time it was breast cancer, another time it was thyroid cancer, another time the last time was bladder cancer. I just got away from Dr. Darby a while ago because in this 6-month thing, after you've had bladder cancer, they bring you in every 6 months and then check you out. I am just good to go. But, I know. But sometimes people will say to me, Sheila, nobody ever knows you have cancer. That's what they say to me in the water classes. And I'm like, you know what? Here's my philosophy. God has given me the opportunity to have cancer so that, guess what? I get to go into hospitals and I get to meet doctors. I get to meet physicians. I get to meet radiologists. I get to meet surgical nurses. Oh my gosh. Now, those people, y'all know, if you've ever been in the, you know, starting in the medical situation, that a lot of those people, they don't know who Jesus is. Or they've got some kind of an idea, and they think they're spiritual, whatever. But anyway, the bottom line of my testimony is that I look at having an affliction, a cancer, Parkinson's disease, whatever it is, okay? We're not perfect. And God uses us in lots of ways. Whenever he told his disciples, do you remember in the story, and I'm not sure exactly where it is, it has to be New Testament, because Jesus was telling his disciples to go out, y'all just go out. Now, I'm sending y'all on your way, go out and heal people and tell them about me. Now, do you remember they called him Little James? It's all right. Okay. They called him Little James, okay? And he had kind of a limp. Now, he was one of the disciples that Jesus had said, I want you to go out and talk to these people and heal them. Go, little missionaries, and do your thing. So little James went to Jesus and he said, Jesus, isn't it going to be a little, now I'm paraphrasing. I got back from Greece, but I still don't speak Greek. Okay. He said, Jesus, isn't it a little bit weird that you're asking all of us, including me, and I got this limp going on, you're asking us, including myself, to go out and heal people and tell them about you. And do you know what Jesus said? Jesus said, look it up. I always encourage you to look it up. Jesus was like, you know what, James, little James, people have seen other people be healed. They know about that. But people have not seen people who have not been healed sharing that gift and healing others. So, even though we have Parkinson's, we have cancer, we have a limp, we have, our eyesight is not all that great. Doesn't matter. God wants us to just be used and be available to Him wherever we are.
So true.
You know, and you just have to trust Him on that, because He tells you all things work together for good for those who know and love Him. So that was my introduction, but I kind of got off track. But anyway, I just want to let you know how much faith means to me, and how I'm very excited about Jesus, and I talk about Him all the time. But anyway, when Michelle asked me to come and talk to y'all about Parkinson's and the water, I wanted to look it up a little bit, and I did find that Parkinson's came as a clinical syndrome. I didn't know that, see? And the disorder is characterized by involuntary behavior. That makes sense to me. I understand all that. And so you have the tremors or stiffness, and sometimes inability to maybe walk, steady. And aquatic exercise. How many of y'all have done any aquatic stuff? Have y'all done anything in the water other than maybe swim?
Oh, nobody else?
No? Oh, okay. Okay, so have you done what?
It's just been like water aerobics.
Water aerobics, okay. Well, in water aerobics, when you're out of the water and you're up here, there is no resistance at all, right? But when you get in the water, when your body gets in the water, there's anywhere from 10 to 15% of additional resistance in there. So it doesn't matter what you're doing if you're just in there standing, moving around like you're trying to do a hula hoop or something. Moving your fingers, moving your legs, hold on to the wall, moving your legs, front to back. That helps. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Your body is receiving that because we are made up of water. Okay, so it doesn't matter what you do. You're standing there, and I've seen it happen so many times. I give several testimonies. There's a fella. A lot of these guys and women are former military folks who have injuries from being in the military. Now, some of them are major. Others, Parkinson's, those. But you want to find stability. You want to be able to be balanced. You're working on your balance. You're trying to train your body. When you get up in the mornings, if you just do this, just do this, just do this. Don't worry about it, just do this. That is moving your body. You don't have to do anything fancy, nothing fancy. You know, you're just moving your arms. Now, it's like I was telling Christine, if you want to confuse your brain, okay, you want to confuse your brain, you just make a figure 8. You just make a figure 8. You just keep doing that, keep doing it, and you're concentrating on that figure 8, right? And you're going to calm down.
It's that intentional piece.
Yeah. You're retraining your brain. You're retraining your brain. Now, this, for example, this is a little different piece, but it explains it a little bit, okay? You take a person who has had back surgery. Anybody in here had back surgery? Back surgery. Okay, so if you've had any kind of surgery on your back, our body is all working together, okay? Your feet are talking to your arms and your hands, all of these muscles, everything is continual. And if you take up Tai Chi or something like that, that helps a lot with your balance. It looks easy, but when you start, you're shaking your head. Did you take a Tai Chi class?
Yes,
Yes.
several of them.
Not as
Can I
easy as it
still
looks.
do it? No,
Okay, good.
But I keep trying.
So see, you know what I mean. It's like, okay, we're going to come over here. No, we want to come over here, you know. And so I encourage you, try a Tai Chi class out. And because you're learning how to balance on your body, and you're learning how to just, you know, and you're working every muscle in your body, because you're working hard at just standing still, okay? So Tai Chi's fun. So if you can get to a Tai Chi class, that's great. Anything to have fun. My classes, a lot of my water classes with the fellas that have had, they're disabled. They've had, like I said, about the back surgeries. Now, if you've had ablations in your back for pain, if you don't have to have ablations, don't have them. Because think about this, an ablation is doing something to those muscles in your body. Those muscles in your body, everything talks to the brain. Everything's in the brain. And if you have ablations done in your back, then there's certain signals that your spine gives your brain, whether it's to walk, whether it's to talk, whether it's to move your fingers, all of that is connected. And if you've had an ablation, you have to retrain your brain to do those certain movements, okay? So if you don't have to have those kind of things, try acupuncture. Acupuncture's great. It's non-invasive. You might say, well, Sheila, that it pricks, okay? But it doesn't, it works great. There's our water aerobics. Now, the one thing I wanted to mention was, and I'm not going to talk anymore. One thing, see, I told you. Because I loved it.
Hey, that's great when you were inspired and you want to.
I just, you know, I know it helps. I just know it helps.
I
But
think it's fun too. So.
I got distracted. What was I just saying?
Water aerobics we were talking about.
Okay, yes, water aerobics. Whenever this fella is on disability from the military. Now, he was 30 years in the Army. When he first came into my class, bless his heart, but you know how you just they kind of walk like a robot, you know, okay. So that's what was happening in the beginning, okay. So over time, we've been together 5 years. Now he walks a little easier, okay. Doesn't have quite so much pain. Of course, he's using a little bit of turmeric and some other natural things. Some of those drugs, they do something to your head, you know. So you want to do good herbal stuff if you can. Stay away from some of that, because it goes through your liver anyway. It's not doing you any good. Okay, that's another one. It's another topic. But anyway, he's doing much better. But he'll never be able to swim. He'll never be able to swim like this. He can't get his body straight because he's had several ablations in the back and in his neck. So there's no way that he's going to be able to
Do all the movements.
yeah, he's not going to be able to do that. However, the guy that is his teacher, what we've talked about, because we talked about it, and I said, okay, well, if he can't swim like this, can you at least help him to float? Okay, so you got to pretend like he's disabled and teach him how to float. And at least if he, when he's going on a cruise, if he gets pitched off the boat, he'll know how to float. And I said,
It's good to plan ahead on those things.
well, you know, it sounds like a weird thing when you say that, but it really motivated him to want to
Well, that's
learn
good.
how to float.
Because he wanted to go on his cruise.
Yeah, because he was a little depressed about not being able to
Yeah.
learn how to swim because he's competitive. He wanted to learn how to swim.
Right.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I just love, because I know even if you have like knee issues or hip issues, it's just that low impact, so you get the workout that you need without putting all that extra strain on your body.
Right. So I'm a big advocate of water, obviously, and I have a class on just arthritis moves.
Oh.
Head, shoulders, knees, and toes is the way I go.
Head, shoulders, knees, and toes.
You remember that song?
I do.
So that's what I'm doing, is I'm trying to help everybody.
Can I ask a logistical question? Is the pool heated?
Yes.
Okay.
And the last thing I'm going to say is that the YMCA over on 134, this is my understanding,
The
I
Victory
shared it
one?
with Michelle, they have started an exercise group for Parkinson's.
Yeah. I think some of the group had actually gone through the first one, right? In
Yeah.
Hampton?
We
You
did down at Honeycutt.
Okay, and I think that they're starting all of them again soon. I heard, and I know that there was an email that went out, but I didn't get all the details.
Okay.
So,
So
We
that's
do
great.
Hampton and Yorktown right now.
okay.
So that's great. So that's great. Now, I'm not sure if Allie will be teaching it, but you'll love her. She's just a trip. She's really ill. She's from Italy. She's typical.
Does she bring food and wine?
Oh yeah. I mean, she's typical.
I'm there.
She's a typical Italian. Okay. Does anybody have any questions before I turn it over to the next person?
No questions. All
Okay.
right,
No
Sheila,
questions.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, now Christina, are you ready?
Yes.
All right. Oh, do you
No,
do
no,
something
go ahead.
now?
Go ahead. I just need to turn this around
Well,
so
no, I
the
should've
screen's
talked
not
too much.
backwards.
But I respect your time.
All right.
I didn't want the screen to be backwards, so the words are backwards, so we're okay now.
Where's the-
That's all.
Is it supposed to be facing me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Christina. So Christina from Care Connect Direct is up next.
Thank you.
That way I was on camera for 2 seconds.
Well, thank you guys. It was a nice segue with Sheila because, you know, before you guys come in and have to meet with us, it's a nice thing to stave off the need for long-term care direct assistance is, you know, keeping your body moving and being healthy and staying as independent as possible. So I appreciate you all having me here and extending the
We appreciate you
invitation.
coming.
I always jump at the opportunity to come and talk to the community because 90% of the cases that myself, and I have Kelsey Goley here this evening with us, and she is my right and left hand, and also
right
my
and left
my
hand.
niece, who has been with me since she was yay big. You can't tell that we're related, I'm sure. But 90% of our cases are crisis intervention, and for 20 years that I've had the firm, it's always been, sort of what keeps me awake at night is the fact that a lot of things as far as the crisis that we experience with our seniors and in their planning, some of it can be preventable, and we have a lot more options available to us when planning is done, okay, in advance. So it's really important. I started the firm, just so that you're aware, Care Connect Direct is actually sort of a different title for us that we did a new doing business as in September. We've been very fortunate to help people in the area of Virginia for 20 years, but we have had quite a few people that have contacted us from all across the United States. And so rather than having the title of just specifically Care Connect of Hampton Roads, we transitioned to Care Connect Direct, so you guys are actually seeing this for the first time here formally. We are a full-service geriatric case management firm. What does that mean? And I don't know how many of you even heard the term geriatric case management firm. Full service meaning that clients call us and we quickly are assessing what their specific needs are medically, legally, financially. All of these things come into play. And our goal is to make sure that you have the most comprehensive plan that's available to you, okay, that is actually feasible, and we're not just making referrals, okay? We sort of have this motto in that our clients are worth more than just a referral, okay? We wanna make sure that it actually gets executed and that we take you by the hand to assist with your process, and everything is very specific to you and your goals, okay, for your future. So with that being said, today our focus is really going to be an overview on sort of all of the important components of long-term care planning. I'm not going to delve deep into them. We do have some information sheets for you. There's going to be some things, obviously, that I'll talk about in a little bit more detail, primarily some of the legal and financial aspects of things, okay? Because those are kind of the fundamental building blocks. I can make a ton of suggestions about long-term care, but if you can't afford it, we're not doing you any good, okay? So the money obviously becomes very important when we're talking about this time of your life. Unfortunately. All right, so why long-term care matters, okay? Well, it matters because we have such a significant aging population, okay? Seniors have a lot of buying power, okay, whether you realize that or not, and a lot of ability to influence things. So 70% of adults over age 65, it's not a matter of if but when, and you guys have probably all heard this, okay? You're going to need some level, okay? We don't just go from being completely independent to passing away. A large part of our seniors have some type of medical event and are requiring some level of assistance, okay? And now with the introduction of medications, as Sheila was touching on, some of them, obviously are necessary, but we sort of take a really, careful approach about medications with our seniors. Sometimes less is more, just depends on your individual case. But they all have side effects, as we're aware.
They all do. Multiple pages of scrolling side effects.
Yes. So, costs can exceed over $100,000 per year for nursing home level of care, as well as assisted living care if you require specialized care, such as memory care, which is one of the most expensive medical needs to have to provide assistance for. And people are requiring assistance for 5, 10, 15 years, okay, before they pass away from an associated illness or age. Then we have planning early. What it does is it protects assets, okay? It does ensure quality of care, and it reduces family stress. Like I told you, what we do, and Kelsey can attest to this, it's very emotionally charged, okay? It's not a pleasant situation to have a loved one who's had a medical concern and you're being told at the hospital that they can't return back home. And guess what? You have 24, maybe 48 hours to figure out what you're gonna do, okay? So that means who is of legal authority to make decisions? How are we gonna pay for it, okay? And what is the best option? Because all of a sudden we're having these terms thrown at us about assisted living, nursing home, in-home care, and all that the hospital is really concerned with, unfortunately, is you're not meeting criteria to be here under your insurance and you have to go, okay? It's not a good scenario. And I'm not trying to throw people under the bus, but unfortunately that's what we deal with, okay? And I'm sure Michelle knows this as well. Okay, so understanding long-term care. First, we want to make sure that you know what that term actually encompasses. So it's supportive services for those needing help with daily activities of living. You know, bathing, dressing, meal preparation, medication administration, you know, assistance with transferring from a seated position, you know, day-to-day needs. So it can be somewhat, you know, individual with regards to what you need. There's instrumental activities of daily living. You know, perhaps you need some assistance with even dialing the phone because, you know, your fingers due to arthritic conditions are not working like they used to. I'm experiencing all of that now. It's a lot of fun. Okay. Types of long-term care can happen in home, okay? In your home environment, can happen in assisted living, memory care, community, nursing, hospice community. There's even, you know, small private care facilities now that are, you know, popping up everywhere, which you have to be real careful about. And so it can happen in a lot of different locations. The thing is it all costs money. Okay, someone is going to have to pay for that, and typically it's the individual who needs the assistance. So, nursing home care, we talked about this on a monthly basis, $10,000 to $20,000 a month. So we're actually seeing this migration happening of people in the Northeast. And if they have family members that live in the Southeast, they're opting to move and relocate because it's less expensive here. One of the things I always think is interesting to find out is that when we have clients that are considering applying for Medicaid, okay, state, federal Medicaid, Northern Virginia actually has a different Medicaid divisor than what the southern part of our state does. People are interested to know that you can actually have a gross income of just under $10,000 in Northern Virginia and still qualify for Medicaid long-term care because the market, the normal market cost of care in Northern Virginia is so high. Okay.
You mean until Trump passes his way?
I'm sorry?
You mean until Trump passes his way?
That's like a whole lot to unpack. That's a lot. Yeah, that's a whole other separate thing, and we better serve some beverages, adult beverages.
I don't have any, I'm sorry.
Assisted living, $4,000 to $8,000, and again, it's regional. Okay, it can be a little more, a little bit less, but this is kind of, you know, a market average. Home health aides, anywhere between $30 to $40 an hour, okay, and a lot of them have requirements of, you know, minimum 4 hours a day minimum, okay. And then, you know, without a plan, obviously, cost can drain retirement savings because, you know, how do you pay for this? We get the question, well, isn't my insurance going to pay for it? Not custodial type care. It does not. It pays for routine medical, but it does not pay for custodial type care that would provide assistance with, you know, those things like activities of daily living, okay, that we talked about.
You mentioned hospice on the previous slide. Of course, that's free to the patient.
Yes. So that is free with your insurance for hospice services. And, you know, part of that is I'm a big supporter of hospice, and I also see, and this has just been, you know, my entire career, hospice doesn't often get introduced, in my opinion, as soon as it should. Okay.
I agree. I think we all agree.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many misnomers about it, and you know, stigma attached to it, and many people. I mean, and I think, you know, physicians sometimes are at fault for this as well in the medical community because, you know, they're in curative mode, you know, with a lot of their patients. And
yeah, I do hospice chaplaincy, and so I see this all the time. And so much of it is, you know, if your kids are telling you that you are qualified for hospice, or they're putting you in hospice, to a lot of people, that's like saying, we want you dead.
Right.
Or we think you're dying so quickly, or however it's going to be interpreted, where hospice provides a lot of help. If our patient can get past that, they can have a much better life the rest of the life they've got
yes.
remaining.
Quality of life.
Yeah.
But most people have never heard of hospice
Right.
except at that last week. of
And in
life.
conjunction with the
It's
diagnosis
probably true,
related to
yeah.
cancer, and you know, a lot of instances,
Right.
and just as the chaplain was saying, is that it's, you know, often saying, okay, well, oh my gosh, death is imminent for me, and that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah.
And we've had, you know, our firm serves as court-appointed guardian conservator, and these people are our people, and they're our family. When they, you know, get appointed through the court, and we're personally responsible for them. And I have had so many of our clients that we've had guardianship for graduate off of hospice.
Yeah, we see
Love
that as well.
And
Yeah.
and that's wonderful, but I'm grateful when hospice is in place. I mean, specifically in the role that we play, because it is another set of eyes and ears and someone to help care for them. Okay, and watching out and reporting to us, and so they perk up when they're receiving that additional, you know, care, and then they graduate off of it, and then we look at possibly getting them enrolled again, you know, at a future date. So, knowing about that and understanding exactly how hospice can be beneficial, and it is a way to go through, you know, end stages of life with dignity, and in a manner that you want for yourself. Okay, no one really wants to be bouncing back and forth to the hospital, and so you have that conversation and do it early. Okay, so that your decision maker who you've appointed understands specifically what you want.
Yeah. One more thing about hospice, and that is that our nurses, our doctor will be involved with evaluating. And so you can have somebody evaluated for and they don't qualify yet. And if you want to call that good news, it is.
Mm-hmm.
But there's that another free opportunity there to be evaluated and have more of a sense of where you're at.
Sure. I mean, and sometimes it's, you know, people aren't familiar, there's a failure to thrive diagnosis, you know, like
Exactly
so they'll
right.
say, well, there isn't a specific diagnosis that I think would really qualify, and I'm going, okay, well, are we losing weight? Are we sleeping more? You know, are we eating less? Is our body, you know, processing the food that they are, you know, and the sustenance they are taking? And the families go, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that. I, you know, hadn't noticed, and the doctor didn't have that conversation. So, you know, the families go in and they ask that specific question and say, hey, we discussed this, you know, diagnosis of failure to thrive, and then the doctor says, oh yeah, maybe you should be meeting the criteria under that.
I think to your point too, when you said that we should be introducing it sooner, most physicians, out of all of their years of training and years of internship, this is a like 1 week blip that
Correct.
they talk about, so they don't know much about it, and then they are on to other things and they forget the little bit that they knew to begin with.
And so is geriatrics.
Yeah.
In general, unless you're seeing a geriatrician specialist. Okay. So that's where we, you know, ended up having some trouble too with some of the medications that our seniors are put on. So we've ended up having to really take a look at our clients' pharmaceuticals, and I know more about it than I should at this point, because we have to ask the questions for them.
Yeah.
Medicaid and long-term care planning. So, you know, key strategies, and this is kind of the meat of what we're talking about today, is to kind of know the components of what we primarily deal with, okay? So this is, you know, sort of our highlight reel. So Medicaid, you know, people will refer to it as the M word, and they're, I don't ever want to be on Medicaid. Medicaid is horrible, and Medicaid is not great, okay? I just want to say that. It is not wonderful. And Medicaid is a federal program that each state receives their sort of you know, portion of money. Their respective, you know, sort of bucket of money at the state level, and then at the state level, the state decides how they're going to distribute that money, okay, to the citizens of the state. So in Virginia, it's interesting because we have 3 different types of Medicaid, which just makes things a little bit more
Do we really?
confusing. Mhm. So we have Medicaid long-term care, so that's typically provided in, you know, a certified nursing facility. If you've ever had someone or yourself in a skilled rehab facility, it's that type of environment that they have a long-term wing, okay, where they have people who were there permanently. And then we also have community-based care, or CBC care, or waiver. It's often referred to as a waiver. And that can actually be received, and you're provided assistance in the home. It's limited, okay? CBC care is limited. We don't do a lot of it, and the reason that we don't do a lot of it is because the reliability and the quality of the agency provider is leaving a lot to be desired, okay? And so if the state comes and does a medical assessment for the person who's needing Medicaid, they may assess and say, okay, yes, you're appropriate for in-home care, but the maximum that someone gets through Medicaid with having an agency come in is 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that is rare. Okay, I've had a handful, you say Kelsey, in the last 20 years, who've received that amount. Because typically when we start to see their need for more than that, it's less expensive for the state to actually transition that person to a custodial setting, a long-term nursing home, versus giving them one-on-one assistance around the clock. Okay, so that's when you sort of cross that threshold. And Medicaid there's 2 parts required to it. You have to meet the medical criteria, and you also have to meet the financial criteria, okay, for that. Then the third that we have here is called an auxiliary grant, okay? Good luck finding a place that actually takes these AG grants. Auxiliary grants are typically for people who aren't quite in need of nursing home care. Okay, their medical needs are not so significant that they need nursing home care, and they could be cared for in an assisted living. But the waiting list is substantial. They've been phased in and phased out in a lot of places over the last 2 decades. So it's difficult. I mean, we did have a client who was waiting for 2 years to get their parent in an AG bed. So we don't do a lot of those. And when we have a client who's kind of on the fence about it, we sort of tell them it would be far better for us to just do traditional long-term care in a nursing setting rather than seeking the auxiliary grant and assisted living. Now our neighbors to the south in North Carolina, they don't make any differentiation between assisted living and nursing home.
Really?
You qualify for Medicaid, you know, if you're meeting the medical criteria, you can go to assisted living. It's seamless for them. So it's a little simpler.
Okay.
That's why when we have people that call and say, I'm thinking about moving my mom to Virginia and we're gonna need to qualify for Medicaid and she lives in Elizabeth City, and I go, wait, no, let's not do that. We need to have a conversation first. Please don't do that. And we explain to them why. Okay.
Yes.
Planning strategies, VA pension benefits. So, in our office, I am the VA accredited claims agent. What does that mean? It means that I spend the majority of our time, I meaning her, spends the majority of the time arguing with the Department of Veterans Affairs. So our expressed legal authority, well, we have a stable of elder law attorneys that do all of our estate planning and trusts and wills and things all across the United States and here in Virginia. What my express legal authority is to prepare and argue claims before the Office of General Counsel, okay, which is the Department of Veterans Affairs private court. I always tell people I am not the VA's darling. They probably have a picture of my face on their
with dart.
Yes, with dart holes in it.
Which means that you're doing a great job.
That's how I feel about it. I really do. But they do not love us, and that means I'm doing my job the way that I'm supposed to, because our role is to assist our veterans and their widowed spouses, okay, with obtaining the benefits that they deserve. This benefit I never anticipated, 20 years ago that I would be involved or doing what I'm doing with practicing before the VA, but it was needed because clients are trying to figure out how to bridge the gap. They have, fixed amount of income, fixed amount of assets. This benefit can help veterans and their widowed spouses sometimes avoid having to qualify for Medicaid, or allows them to be able to afford to move into an environment like this, or to hire and pay for the care that they need at home. Okay, so it's crucial. It is not new. It's been around since the 1950s, but it is a standard thing that we talk to our clients about.
And so Christina did something for us just on the aid and attendance before, because, so we have military families in here and in our group. So many people that have served, my dad included, did not even know about this,
Right.
did not know that he would qualify for it because he didn't retire out of the military.
Correct. Yeah, and even those who were career military, aren't aware.
Yeah.
Of this benefit. It isn't new, it's been around since the 1950s, however, the VA has not and still is not doing a good job of disseminating this information or reaching out to veterans when they separate or when they turn age 65 to say, hey, there's something that might be available to you and here's how you can qualify, okay? So there is very specific criteria that has to be met. Our firm, I'm going to toot our horn a little bit here, but we, in 20 years with all of our cases, we have a 100% approval rate that I'm very proud of. The VA does not allow me, when we are retained to assist, to tell them that we're going to guarantee the outcome of their matter, but I can tell you what our record is. Okay. Yes, sir.
Question?
So, how does Parkinson's relate to VA? I'm not aware of that, something that's specifically covered by the VA,
So,
unless you contract it while you're on active duty.
yep, and so that's the difference with pension. So this is a different benefit, not related to a service-connected disability compensation, which is what you're referring to. So we do disability compensation cases, and we do have some clients that come to us and say, hey, Christina, I'm gonna need long-term care, and I'm thinking about moving into this beautiful assisted living community with my lovely wife, and I have a 10% rating for hearing loss, and I never bother to take a look at anything else. So we're looking at pension, and then we're also gonna be looking at, is there something else related to disability compensation, service-connected, that this veteran may have missed that we might be able to get increased, okay? And so going back to Parkinsonians, symptoms and diagnosis, there may very well be presumptive conditions related to that. Some of our, younger veterans, Vietnam, era veterans, that if they're on a list and there's certain conditions associated with that, we've had individuals with certain types of brain cancer that is not very well known, that we've had cases that we've gone on their behalf as well. So we look at that very closely, mainly to see what is our best course of action. Okay, what's going to yield the most benefit, and can we do it in a time manner that makes sense? So it may be that we apply for VA pension benefits in lieu of additional service-connected compensation, but we always look at both, okay, if that comes into play, and we identify that there's something else that they may not have claimed. There's no statute of limitations when somebody has possibly a service-connected disability compensation issue. It doesn't matter if you've been separated from the military for 50 years. You always have the ability to go back and get it looked at. Okay, so if it makes sense for us to do so, we'll have a conversation about that, okay, to do it. The veterans pension certainly is one of the big ones that we take a look at, and most people they're very unaware. So many people are confused with regards to disability compensation and pension, but they're two different types of benefits, okay, that are available. Long-term care insurance and hybrid policies. Kelsey and I are both licensed in life, health, and annuities. The reason we got licensed to do that is because we fist fight with long-term care insurance all the time. Not because we sell anything, but because they love to have you file a claim and deny you, and we don't like that. So our goal is to examine your policy that you've been paying for thousands and thousands of dollars, and to advise you as to whether or not we should file a claim now, how long do we think it will cover, if it's a limited benefit, whatever the case may be, and then we're helping you fill out the paperwork and making sure that it gets put through, okay, in a timely manner. The whole entire long-term care insurance industry, when the market crashed and all of that took place in 2008, everything was kind of put on its ear. And you had long-term care insurance companies basically not able to cover their claims. I don't know who buried their heads that you would have this large number of seniors. We knew about this age wave, okay, that was happening. And oh my goodness, that you would issue these lifetime policies that these people were paying for, and then move into an assisted living, okay, not needing a whole lot of assistance, and be there 15, 17 years later, still just using a walker, and maybe have some macular degeneration and hard of hearing. And now your biggest concern is I'm still in assisted living, but my money's running out, and what am I supposed to do? Okay, and these people were paying out those claims for all those years. Well, shame on them for not doing the math right, okay? But those people needed to be covered. So There's no more lifetime policies that are offered anymore. So if you get a policy, it's relatively limited. Kelsey and I are really big supporters of hybrid policies because those have living benefits. So it's not a use it or lose it. Because we've seen a lot of our clients who've paid for their long-term care insurance and never got to use it. And it's just flushing the money down the toilet, okay? So long-term care, for people from a planning perspective, if you can get something is better than nothing, okay? But you wanna make sure that it's affordable for you, okay, for the long term, because it's really heartbreaking for us to have conversations with families and they thought that they were doing the right thing and purchased a policy. And then when they look to go under claim, unfortunately, they don't even have the cash on hand to pay through their benefit elimination period. And so what that is, if you're not familiar with that term, is when you file a claim, typically with your long-term care insurance provider, there's a standard, in most instances of 90 days, where you're required to pay out of pocket before the insurance policy will start reimbursing you, okay? That can be a lot of money, you know, I mean, it could be $30,000 or more that you end up having to pay out of pocket before they'll cover anything. So we have had seniors come to us, you know, just for some financial planning assistance, and they're looking at, you know, we're looking at the numbers, and I'm saying, you can't continue to pay this premium on this policy. Not to mention the fact, if you do go under claim, where is the money gonna come from to pay through that benefit elimination? And we've had to decide to let it go, okay? With very careful consideration, but, you know, those things have to be taken into consideration with everything. Trust and estate planning. We do a large number of trusts, and people think that, oh, well, I'm not wealthy enough, okay, to have a trust or to need a trust. And that's not always necessarily the case. I mean, sometimes it's protecting a home, okay, that you've paid for your home and there's no mortgage or lien against it, and that's your biggest asset. You may not have a lot of other investments or anything, but there's ways to protect your property. The types of trusts that, you know, we work with primarily for Medicaid long-term planning, advanced planning, are referred to as Medicaid asset protection trusts. And these trusts have sort of a time stamp on them, or an anniversary stamp on them, because the look back of when we move assets into this particular type of trust is 5 years. It used to be 3 and now it's 5. So this is why advanced planning is really key, so that we can try to keep the assets that you've worked so hard, okay, for all of your life, and still position you that you could benefit from qualifying for Medicaid, okay, which again, doesn't have to be a scary prospect if you know what to expect in advance, okay? It can be actually utilized in an effective manner. So legal tools, revocable and irrevocable trusts. Again, we primarily, for our long-term care planning clients, we work with irrevocable trusts, but we have some clients who have revocable and irrevocable trusts standing side by side. My husband and I are that way. We have both. And mainly because we don't want to put all our eggs in one basket yet. And what I mean by that is that when you create this specific type of irrevocable trust that we're talking about, that's effective for long-term care planning and Medicaid, you're kind of relinquishing control, okay, over the irrevocable trust. So the specific wording of that is you sort of have to say, hey Medicaid, I'm creating this trust, this irrevocable trust. I'm going to put these assets in this trust, and I'm naming a trustee. Okay, who's going to be the gatekeeper? And then 5 years after those assets have been held in that trust with that gatekeeper, Medicaid cannot look at those assets any longer. Okay, but if you have unfettered access to those assets that are held in that trust, Medicaid doesn't see it as being any different than being underneath your mattress that you're sleeping on. Okay,
So that 5 years doesn't apply then.
correct, right. And so for me, I'm not ready to put all my eggs in one basket and let her 26-year-old cousin have the run of the roost yet. Love him, but we're not ready to do that yet, so we go both. Okay. Powers of attorney. So, I mean, people are familiar with the term, but here's the fact of the matter, folks. We're having conversations with parents who are getting ready to send their kids to college. and we're telling them about the importance of sitting their 18-year-old kids down and getting them to fill out a power of attorney for financial and medical.
What do I know about financial and medical at 18?
Not exactly, but here's the thing, right? You may be helping, I mean, at 18 years old, especially if your child's going to college, you may still be helping them financially, and you may be probably paying their tuition or their living expenses and giving them support because they're a full-time student. But good luck calling the bursar's office and asking anything about their account or their bills. They're not going to tell you because you don't have power of attorney and that child is 18 and considered an adult, okay? We had a horrible situation that occurred years ago, and it's always stuck with me. There was a friend of ours whose child was involved in a really bad car accident in Northern Virginia. The emergency responders, hospital, paramedics, I'm not sure who it was, called the parents, and all they could say to them was, your child's been involved in an accident and they're being airlifted and we can't tell you anything until you get here with documents, okay? Can you imagine the car ride for those parents? So these documents, you know, and it gives me chills every time I talk about it, these documents are really important, okay? They also, these very simple and inexpensive documents, they do not have to be expensive, make the difference between whether or not someone's able to pay your bills, okay, if you become ill or incapacitated, to make sure things are paid, to be able to make decisions, that the right person is able to make decisions for you, because otherwise what happens is everything freezes, it's in limbo, and someone is going to have to petition the court to get appointed.
Which could take long.
Oh, it takes a long time, let me tell you. And depending on what city it's in, it can take even longer than a long time. So that's part of what, you know, we deal with as well, and it is avoidable, okay? Now, one of the scary things about powers of attorney for healthcare and financial, anybody can draft these documents and they don't have to tell you that you've been named or appointed. That's kind of weird.
Wait.
I don't
What did you
suggest
just
that.
say?
Yeah, say that again.
So I could name her as my agent under power of attorney. So that means I'm the one that goes in, meets with the attorney, and I say, I want to do a power of attorney, and I would like Kelsey Golee to serve as my agent. They say, okay. I sign the document, I put the document in my safe deposit box. She doesn't have to be notified. So
That
until,
doesn't make any sense.
I know, but that is the law, and I don't recommend that you do that. I certainly would recommend that you have a conversation with the person that you intend to name and make sure that they are willing to serve. We also recommend that if you're gonna have an initial agent, that you also have at minimum a secondary agent. For that reason also, because things change. And the person that you may have had the conversation with says, sure, I'll do it, and then life changes for them, or their health changes,
Yeah.
and at the time that you need them, they're not fit or able, okay, or willing to serve. So we wanna make sure we have a secondary, okay? And that just helps to make your document, you know, you get what you pay for with it, okay? Rather than it failing and then you have to go to court anyway.
Is it true, the power of attorneys, are they only good for 12 months?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. So if you can have a limited, or a special power of attorney that may have, you know, a timeline on it.
Okay.
But no, typically when these documents are drafted, like the beginning of the paragraph will say I'm revoking any other, you know, power of attorney that I may
Okay.
have done, and that this will be in effect until such time that I revoke it.
And I really like that you said to have that second person, because we actually encountered a case that the person that was needing the power of attorney was because of memory care and dementia issues. But then her power of attorney had a debilitating stroke and was no longer able to act. So I didn't even think about the fact and know that to have that second person, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so we actually now, I mean, we sort of have to have clients sign a affidavit acknowledging if they are electing or they say to us, I just don't have a secondary person, and we have to have them, you know, sign an acknowledgement that we advise them, you know, against it and, you know, move forward. Yes, ma'am?
I ran into something up in Massachusetts when I was living in Massachusetts where everyone just kind of assumes that if you were married, that would just automatically go to your spouse. And we found out the hard way up in Massachusetts, at least in Massachusetts law, that's not the case, that you have to still designate your spouse as your power of attorney.
Yeah, and so for finances in particular, unless the spouse is named as a joint owner on the account, They tend to not do that anymore now for medical, particularly because we're a Commonwealth here. They will tend to defer on legal matters with the absence of having an appointed agent, specifically for medical decisions, to next of kin, okay? That is barring anybody sort of contesting and showing up and, you know, having a problem with this person, you know, making the decision over the other.
Like this next kid, because again, Massachusetts is also Commonwealth, but they still the next of kin at that point, because they weren't specifically designated, they had to go to the court and say, I am the next.
And prove it, yes,
Yes.
yes,
So
absolutely.
it still went into the court system, even though she thought, I'm his wife.
Automatically, yeah. And so I'll tell you, it's probably on a state-by-state basis that they probably had an issue in Massachusetts with that. And so that's where there was, you know, when all of these HIPAA laws came into play and the need for, you know, appointing a healthcare agent, you know, an advocate, a legal one, that Terry Schiavo case many, many years, it's like probably 80s, early 90s, with husband and wife, and the husband, the wife was the one that was incapacitated, and I mean, she lay there for months. And the parents, you know, had a difference of opinion as to what should be done, and the spouse felt like he should be able to make those decisions. So the long and short of it is please get these documents, okay, put into place. Because when I tell you, everybody who works in this industry or, you know, has a friend, someone has a story where the outcome has just been poor with the absence of not having these, okay? They are important, very important.
And make copies.
Yes, make copies. Now, powers of attorney, medical directives, copies are accepted, okay? And they are to be treated as though they were the originals. You want to keep your originals safe, but they're supposed to be, per law, they're supposed to be treated as though they were the originals. The only exception to that are last wills and testaments, okay? The only version of the last will and testament that can actually be probated is the original. So if you don't have the original, it's like you passed away in testate like you didn't have it at all, okay? And that will get real ugly because it's never about the money, but it is always. Okay, advanced medical directives, we talked about that. You know, appointing someone to be able to make medical decisions. You know, and here's where a lot of times I'll have parents say, well, I'm gonna split this up because, you know, this kid will pull the plug and this one won't. You know what I mean? Sometimes it comes down to that, and parents know their kids, right? So they may divvy up those decisions. But you wanna make sure too that if you make the decision to have two different people serve, that there is some level of communication, you know, because you don't wanna have someone making medical decisions, but they don't have the purse to, you know, be able to pay for it, okay? So make sure you give that some thoughtful consideration, because that can definitely set things up for litigation quickly.
Do most people have the same person for health and financial, or do most people have?
It splits. I mean, it can be 50-50, but that's where we have to have that additional conversation with them, you know, for counsel to say, you know, since you're doing this, how are your adult children, or, you know, whoever, what's the nature of their relationship? You know, are they getting along okay? And sometimes it's that the senior trusts their children, but they may not trust the spouse of the children, okay? Or a future spouse of the child. Like we just don't know. And so we're trying very much to plan for the worst and hope for the best, right? In any scenario, but there's just some things that we can't anticipate because we don't have a crystal ball, okay? But these documents are definitely, you know, those fundamental building blocks, because without them, things are really gonna be a mess, and I can guarantee you that. So asset protection and special needs trusts, we touched on those. And so, you know, there's so many myths out there, you know, about Medicaid. We do a whole presentation on, you know, Medicaid myths. And one of the big ones with Medicaid is that you have to completely lose everything, okay? Well, we just talked about how you can protect things. So that's not actually true, all right? Now, the state and Medicaid in general does not provide assistance under Medicaid until we're financially able to show that the person and their individual name, as far as their assets concerned, is somewhat indigent, okay? And they treat income and they treat assets in two separate categories. So everybody says, well, you can't have more than 2,000, you can't have more than 2,000. And what they're assuming is, well, my income is $3,700 a month between, my private pension and my Social Security, so I'm not gonna qualify for Medicaid, but that's your income, okay? It's $2,000 in assets. That's for the state of Virginia. Some other states, it varies a bit, but here in the state of Virginia, the asset limitation is currently $2,000, okay? Your income can be more than $2,000 and still qualify for Medicaid. And that's when I mentioned, Northern Virginia, you can have income just under $10,000 and qualify for Medicaid in Northern Virginia because it's income and not your assets, all right? So that's not true, but you have to definitely pre-plan. And then facts, so proper planning can preserve your home, income, okay, and your legacy. So again, how do we do that? There's gifting strategies, whether it's to an individual or it's to a trust. It just depends, depending on what your individual goals are and how much you trust your trustee to do, what it is that you want, but you can protect things. If there is a spouse who's living in the home and you're the one that's qualifying for Medicaid, but your spouse is going to continue to live in the home, then the home can be preserved, okay? But there's also legal things that have to be done. It's not just automatic. We end up having to actually deed the home in its entirety to the community spouse that's remaining in the house. And those are things that can kind of jump up and bite people. I call those kind of our, untied strings that often get forgotten and can have real serious ramifications at a later date. 5-year look back period, that's what we talked about. So whenever we consider creating this trust, we have to sort of understand that we need to look at getting through 5 years. We don't know if we're gonna have 5 years. Life happens, okay? And so we have strategies for that as well. But if we end up having to apply sooner rather than later, we may not be able to preserve everything that we placed in the trust, but we have a better opportunity to protect at least some of it, okay? And gets into more details of things like half loaf and that we refer to, and you can Google that away. But we have additional strategies, okay, to be able to do that and to cover those situations should they arise. Exempt assets, we talked about that, certain homes, vehicles. It's a weird thing with Medicaid. You could be in a nursing home bed and you can have a nice red Maserati sitting out in the parking lot of the nursing home. You can't make payments on it. You can't pay to insure it, but you can have it in your name, yeah. And it's not counted against you. You can have a burial, a pre-need done, and we often advise clients to do that because the cost of that is only going up every year and it actually exceeds the cost of the living increases that we see in assisted livings and nursing homes, your normal kind of average 4%. That far exceeds that, sometimes it's double to be buried for last expenses. So sooner you do that, the better, okay? Death and taxes, right? You don't have to deal with it. So burial funds, as long as they're irrevocably assigned, prepay it, make sure it's irrevocable, and what that means is you just can't get cash back for it, so then Medicaid doesn't count it against you, okay? And then veterans benefits, okay, we talked about that, veterans aid and attendance pension. We have handouts and sheets that for you all.
Some here. Oh, you have
Okay.
a problem, good.
That actually have the current rates, okay, for our aid and attendance pension for wartime veterans. Again, this is a big part of what we do. We file all day long, every day of the week to get benefits for our clients to help supplement cost of care. These are substantial, guys, okay? It's over $2,000 and it is tax-free. Where else do you get tax-free money? Okay, service criteria is much shorter than what people assume. They think that you had to be career military, that you had to retire. You did not. You had to serve as a minimum of 90 days active duty with at least one during a congressional period of war. So Kelsey's answering these questions all the time on her phone. We're doing it online for people. Don't assume, don't just listen to hearsay. Please talk with somebody who knows the facts about it, because we have so many people who could have qualified for it 30 years ago and didn't get it because somebody told them, no, you won't meet the criteria, and they were wrong. So at least just get accurate information. Monthly tax-free benefit, and it is paid to the beneficiary. So it's paid to the veteran or to the widowed spouse. It gets deposited into your bank account where you receive your Social Security and a pension. It is not paid to the service provider. So the facility, okay, Michelle's got people here who are receiving, okay, veterans pension, widowed spouse pension, and the benefit gets deposited into their account, and they just get to use that money to supplement their recurring cost of care, okay, in this community, which is wonderful, okay? We want them to have control over that. Medicaid is not that way. You qualify for Medicaid, Medicaid pays the service provider. All right, can exceed $2,500 a month. It's like over $2,700, I want to say, for when you have a veteran, two spouses married that were both served in the military. Okay, so it's a substantial amount of money. So crisis versus pre-planning. So, you know, people ask us this question, Christina, how soon should I do this? Okay. You know, from an estate planning standpoint, we would love to see families coming in, you know, when they get married and when they have kids and when they start buying properties and, you know, doing all of those things, okay? Our specialization is, you know, with people typically over the age of 65 or as they're starting to, you know, look at retirement. And we're looking at all the pieces. You know, we're not certified financial advisors, we're not accountants, we're not, you know, estate planning attorney. We have all of those people under our umbrella, okay, to make sure that the plan is as comprehensive. We don't want you having to go to all of these different locations and then trying to figure out for yourself whether or not they're talking to each other, okay? Because I guarantee you they're not. And then there's going to be some type of area of exposure that you're going to find out later, and it's going to be of significant consequence. We don't want that to happen. So we always say, you know, 1 to 5 years before care. Okay, that's going to equal more options and savings. The sooner we get to do this, the more lifelines we can throw you, okay? And the more comprehensive it can be. Crisis planning and care needed now, obviously that equals where, you know, it's a little bit limited. It's possible, I mean, because we've been doing it for 20 years. But I really would like to see a shift with that, okay? And that's the whole goal of you guys being here tonight, is to inform yourselves. So, sort of part of the answer, I'm not here to sell you stuff, but family care program, this was kind of one of the answers. Families were like, okay, what can we do now and how can we make it affordable? It's like an insurance policy, okay? Basically averages out to like $2 and some change a day. People are spending more than that on a cup of coffee, a lot more than that, like $7. It gives you priority access and support. It makes sure that, you know, we're staying in contact with our families that are under the program regularly to review their matters, to see what's changed as we do. We have a change in health status. Do we need to update legal documents? You know, all of a sudden, you know, as the example I gave you, well, I named my son as agent under the power of attorney, but you know what, Christina, I'm a little concerned about it now because he's married this woman, and boy, I just don't know, okay, because he's really not exactly doing the things that I expected him to do. So if there's concern, I mean, we hear a lot of this, and we do become very involved with our families, okay? And we need to understand what's happening. And then, you know, we're doing annual reviews and updates. We have a really special couple that we're working with in the community, and they're wonderful, wonderful people. But he is a retired attorney in Virginia Beach, and he came to us and said, you know, Christina, my wife has been diagnosed with early onset dementia, and we didn't have any children, and, you know, they're referred to as what I define as elder care orphans, okay, where they don't have any children to name as sort of, you know, agents to be able to manage their affairs. So we're their kids, okay? That's what we've become for them. And we meet with them periodically. They're living in their home and they're doing okay, but we're listed as their agents under powers of attorney. We, when we do part of the onboarding, we get to know their family members. We've had a family meeting to be able to help make decisions, and whether they want them to be a part of that process, all of that's considered, and, you know, we know all of the players, okay? And then we're checking in with them periodically to see if anything has changed. And if she goes to the hospital, they call us, okay? Our names are posted in their house. We know, you know, day or night they call and we've got something going on. We know what medications they're on. We know what allergies they have. We know what their preferences are, and we jump in to take care of it, okay? How Care Connect Direct helps. So, you know, solutions, right? I say that, you know, it reveals light, and that's what we want to have. We don't want anybody feeling like they're alone on an island, and when a crisis strikes, that's kind of how you feel. That's how our clients have described it to us, and they've said, you know, it's like reaching for a grain of sand on the beach, Christina, and getting the whole thing dumped on you. Okay, you're overwhelmed, you feel like you can't breathe, and you're upset, you're in crisis. So we want to provide comprehensive case management, which is exactly what we do. That's, you know, how we've evolved, and we've added services based on our clients' recommendations and things that they've asked for. Provide legal and financial coordination. How do we do that? I don't do that by myself. She doesn't do it by herself. Our attorneys, like I said, for people who are outside of the state of Virginia, through NALA, which is the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys, but it's seamless to our client. Okay, so if they're in Arkansas, we can put our finger on an attorney there. We call the attorney and say, this is what's happening with this family. We need powers of attorney, medical directives, wills, and we need a trust drafted, and here's everything that we're gonna do. I need you to get out to the hospital and get it signed, okay? That's how it happens, and it does have to be quick, okay, in a lot of instances. Crisis intervention and care navigation, this is huge, okay? Because these families are getting misinformation. And we've had, I just talked with the news crew before I came in here today, because we had sort of a shift, and we knew it was coming, you know, 10, 15 years ago with crisis with Medicaid, and here it's not just the state of Virginia, but we've got facilities who are closing because they're not meeting the criteria to continue to receive federal funds, and we're already short on beds. There's not enough of them. So it is a crisis situation, okay? And so families are being told, your parent has to leave the hospital, or they're being discharged from this facility, and you've got to come and pick them up. Okay, well, that's not safe. And the adult child is going, I don't have the money, I don't have the means, I don't have the skills. What do you mean I have to come get them? And they're being legally threatened and being told, you need to come and get them. Some of them are even being threatened and saying, well, if you don't, we're gonna call Adult Protective Services. Well, if we're able to get in front of it, I tell the facility, please do. Call APS, because we need all the help we can get. And then, by the way, also tell APS that you're willing to discharge somebody and have them leave there in an unsafe situation, and there's a huge liability for that. So go ahead and make that call, do it, okay? But this is what the families don't know. And so you innocently and out of fear, go and pick your loved one up. That puts you at risk, because we've had seniors try to get out of a vehicle, okay, on an interstate going 65 miles per hour because of the illness that they've been diagnosed with, and they need a protected environment, but the hospital was willing to let you go because you got picked up by a loved one, okay? So this is the nature of the type of calls we get and the outcomes, okay, that can occur. Advocacy and family education. This is huge. You know, tonight with the interviews, they were asking about, well, what can I do? And a lot of people don't make yourself aware, okay? Early detection of things with loved ones, your neighbors, anything like that. Sometimes people don't even realize in the neighborhoods that they're in that you're in this naturally occurring retirement community, okay, where people have lived for many, many years and they've aged in place. And they don't even realize that they're acting as a caregiver from time to time. And it may be something as simple as, you're just waving and saying, okay, hey, Mrs. Jones, your newspaper's here. And then you come by a few days later and Mrs. Jones didn't come out to get her newspaper. And then the next day the newspaper's sitting there and it's, and the mail's piling up. Well, something's wrong with Mrs. Jones, okay? Check in and see. Some people say, well, I'm not sure I want to get involved with it. Okay, well, to that extent, then don't personally get involved. Call our agency. Call Adult Protective Services, call the police and ask them to make a wellness check, okay, to see what's going on. Because a lot of times they may have family too, but the family lives far away or may actually live in town, but they're working and they're at the most critical stages of their own careers, and mom's telling them, I'm fine because I don't want to be a burden. Everything's okay. I'm good. And they're not. They're actually not, okay? And stuff happens. So I tell adult children, go knock on the doors. If you're not able to be there all the time, go talk to the neighbors and say, hey, this is my mom and she's, vehemently independent, but here's my number. If you happen to see something, please call me, okay? Most people don't mind that, okay? So it's really important to have conversation, and everything with social media and sort of the way that everybody's living their lives is they're not talking and meeting with each other, you know, out there mowing their lawns, and you know, it just doesn't happen anymore. And it's a shame that it can have bad results. So, steps to getting started. Clients can schedule consultations with us. You can do it directly online. You can call the office. You can do it virtually. You can meet with us in person. We have an office over here in Newport News near Patrick Henry Mall. And then also in Virginia Beach, and we sit down and identify what your goals and your current plans are, okay? And to talk through some of the concerns that you have. And then we identify benefits and strategies, okay, for you. I always love it when I have clients who met with me, you know, a long time ago, and just got the information, and then they bring in some of our like original marketing materials. That's amazing to me, you know, because they heard me and they put it away and they knew, okay, this is what she said and who I needed to call when the time came to play, okay? That's awesome when that happens, and we love it. So we identify benefits and strategies for you, and then we want to implement those protections. You know, I said at the beginning, our clients are worth more to us than just referrals, okay? People are going to shove names and information to you, and that may be all that they can do. Their hands may be otherwise tied. But we make sure that it's more than that, okay? We know that you're overwhelmed. We know that you need assistance, and we want to make sure that those plans get executed, okay? And we don't just rely on you to do that on your own. There's obviously certain information that we have to get from you, but we have to make sure that it actually gets executed and it doesn't just sit there in a pile. Then we want to go back and revisit it, okay, annually. We had a woman who we created a trust for, did all of this advanced planning, and just reached out to us the other night because we've got to sit down and regroup because it's 2 years post and healthcare status has changed, cost of care has increased, and now we're ready to go. Rubber's meeting the road, and we need to apply for benefits and get transitioned into a long-term care community. Key takeaways, okay? We have a sheet, a takeaway sheet for you that kind of highlights everything that we touched on today in our contact information. Plan early, okay, before the crisis hits. That's the main takeaway you get from this today. Please let it be that. Protect your assets and maintain control, okay? Because again, it is about the money. We want it to be about the quality of care as well, but if we can't pay for it, we're lost. Use experienced professionals to assist. Please, please, please make sure that you do that. VA pension benefits, I am calling Office of General Counsel and reporting people all the time because you have people who are not doing things the right way, they're not authorized to be assisting in the manner that they are, and in fact it's engaging in authorized practice of law, and they're not doing it correctly, okay? And so the outcome is a mess. Our goal, specifically with VA pension benefits, we don't want to get involved in an appeal, okay, with Medicaid or the VA. Let's get it done correctly the first time, and then we don't have to worry about that, all right? But if they've received bad information, it can result in an appeal, and then we're looking at a much lengthier process. Preserve dignity, family harmony, and peace of mind, okay? We want to make sure that you're not completely stressed out. We'll take those things from you, put it in a, concise manner, an executable plan so that you can move forward. And I don't know why that graphic is there, but that's our contact information. If you have your phones, we also now have this like handy dandy QR code that's gone on everything, which she's so used to that because she's a lot younger and has a much juicier brain than me. But you can scan that with your camera and it'll take you right to our website.
Right to the website.
Yes. And for those of you that, don't do that, we see regular website addresses there. Okay? And our phone. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Any other questions?
Ooh, are we getting a picture of the phone number or the QR code? I'm just curious.
The whole shebang.
No questions about veterans benefits, legal documents, anything? Wow.
We
You
refer
have
so
to go
many
through all
people.
those boxes in my garage.
So,
That's not the question.
I don't do it
expected.
personally. We do have people that do that under our purview. Yes, excellent people that help to sort, because that's a big thing too. I mean, my husband and I are looking at that right now, and I'm going, ooh, the downsizing stuff. It's a lot. You don't want to just
Plan
give it
early,
away.
that's the best advice. I
Yes.
can give.
Yes. Yeah. Well, this one and her cousin, my son, they're like looking like going, oh, please don't leave this mess for us. Like, make sure.
That is the new trend.
Yes. Yeah, so we wanna make sure everything's like neatly sorted and, you know, obviously,
You just go minimalist, Mom.
hey, you know what, I'm all about that, yeah.
You just
It's
go
not that
minimalist.
easy.
I
I
struggle.
know.
There's a
Tell me
part of
about
me
it.
that wants to be a minimalist, and then there's a part of me that likes things, so
Sure.
it's the constant battle.
It is, yeah, and then, you know, you like see these cute little things that fall
Minimal
time, like,
things, Michelle.
I have to have this garland and pumpkin and.
I know. So my new thing is to try not to buy any new ornaments or decorations since I can't purge and downsize the ones I have.
Right.
Trying.
You need to tell your mom that. She has like
Yeah,
a whole
it's a
room
work
of just.
We're a work in progress still.
Yes. One of my friends, her thing was if she bought something new, something had to leave.
Yes.
So the equal amount of things coming in, something has to leave.
That's a good policy, it
Yeah.
really is, yeah.
That's
Definitely.
easier said than done.
I was gonna say, in theory, it's great.
Well, like I find myself too, you go through it and you're like, oh, remember this, and then it's like,
It's
That's
emotional
my
charge, that's the
problem,
problem.
the nostalgia.
yeah, it's very hard to get through all of it, so.
Could I ask you, you said something about, okay, and I had it very clear a minute ago. Okay, someone is ready to be released from the hospital.
Mhm.
It's very clear sometimes now it's really hard to find a place for them.
Sure.
So you said, go ahead and tell them, release them.
No.
And-
No,
No.
so, you actually have a right to refuse,
Okay.
for that person out. And this is also depends on if the person really is incapable of making decisions for themselves, okay? So the person may be saying to you, I don't wanna go to a nursing home, I don't wanna go to a rehab facility, and refusing that. Now, it depends on if, you know, you are that person's appointed agent, okay? Under a power of attorney, you can produce that document. And you can say, if you release them home, it's an unsafe discharge, okay? That is the term, unsafe discharge. The hospital hears that and they go, whoa, okay, somebody's obviously advised you. And you need to say, there's no one to take care of them at home, I'm not able to do that, I'm not accepting responsibility for them. Sometimes the hospital or even rehab facilities will get upset and they will be a bit bullying, okay? And they will say to you, well, if you refuse to come and get them, then we're gonna go ahead and contact APS and report you to Adult Protective Services. Okay, you're not doing anything wrong. In fact, you're doing exactly the right thing because you're trying to make sure that that person doesn't end up in harm's way, okay? Because they cannot care for themselves. There won't be anybody there to accept that responsibility, so it would definitely put them in harm's way. And would essentially lead them coming back into the hospital, you know, under emergency circumstances. So they want to not be stuck with somebody that doesn't have the ability to pay, because it all comes back to the money, unfortunately, okay, with insurance. But you have the ability to refuse.
One for each of y'all or just one?
And I am just too exhausted to take care of this person.
Yeah.
And now I'm gonna
I mean,
have to-
so just because someone is a spouse or just because someone is the power of attorney,
You got one of these?
Each of us.
doesn't mean that they have to accept responsibility for being the caretaker. Okay, caretaker. Because they require a significant amount of assistance. And you're not prepared to do that, you don't have things aligned, you know, to take care of it. And then that's when, you know, our agency, comes into play. And you have to be a factor in that. You are a variable that needs to be considered in that, you know, as a decision maker. And being exhausted is, you know, you can't be awake 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And this is what I tell people all the time, is that particularly if you have somebody who has, you know, dementia and they're up all hours of the night, you can't be awake 24/7.
That's not a safe situation.
You know, in a community, that's why they have shifts of people who come in,
I
okay, to
always
be
try
able
and
to
say
do
like the
that.
airline where they tell you you have to put on your oxygen mask before you can take care of somebody
Right.
else.
Well, and I think too, along with that, it's hard once you do accept that responsibility, because you think you're up for it and you can do it, and then you
Yes.
realize I'm not, it's hard then to go backwards.
It is.
And say, you know, I work with a lot of people where we're trying to get them resources to be the caregiver because they've already accepted their responsibility. And they're just, you know, hiring someone to come in around the clock or hiring someone to do shifts, you know, so it's better to make sure things are in place and are good
Correct.
before they discharge them.
Right.
Than to just say, well, I'll just take them home and we'll work it out later, because that's a lot work.
Yeah, it is, and it's very difficult then, to, like as you stated, to reverse it and then try to get them essentially to transition into a facility. It's easier for us to do those types of placements when they're coming out of the hospital or another skilled care setting, because we're able to get all of the medical documentation, you know, taken care of. They're still in a safe setting, and then to do the, you know, admission direct. And we have had clients where we've gone out to the house and we've done an assessment, and I'm going, what are they doing back at home? Why were they discharged? And they're like, because they told us we had to do it. And you know what I'm doing? I'm calling 911 and I'm pushing them right back to the emergency room again.
I thought you had to be in the hospital to get discharged to a nursing home and have it paid for.
So you do. So you have to have 3 overnight stays, okay, in order to go to a skilled rehab facility. That is if you actually get admitted. Because
Right,
sometimes,
not observation.
yes. And so sometimes they bring you in there and you're like sitting out in the hallway or even in a room, but they didn't officially admit you. And so those are all the questions too that we have to ask to see how long the person's been in there, were they actually admitted. And sometimes they don't want to recommend that the person go to skilled care, particularly if we have a diagnosis of dementia, because they like to write our dementia patients off and think that they won't benefit from any of it. Okay, it's like this blanket assumption, which is horrible. So those are also the things from an advocacy standpoint, you know, that we're handling with our clients. Okay.
Very good.
Thank you all so much.
Well, thank you, Sheila, thank you, Christina, everyone. It's been a great evening. Our next meeting is the 3rd Wednesday in November. That's the 19th, and you all are welcome back.
Absolutely.
It'll be here again, and we have a speaker, and we're not exactly sure who that speaker is.
I know George has arranged a speaker from Riverside. I don't remember her name off the top of my head, but before the meeting, we'll send something out.
Yep.
Sarah Tucker?
Brianna, maybe? There were so many names on the email that I'm not sure who was the speaker and who was the coordinator.
Yeah. So thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.